G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoyed today's bloody good stories, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the Barbie. Let's get into today's bloody good episode. Cheers. Posted by user ThrowRALE Sachs, titled, I, 25 female, have face blindness, my boyfriend, 24 male, likes to test me. How do I make it clear that this is not okay? Hi y'all, sorry for posting this. If it's not okay, I can delete it. I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year now. I love him dearly and he loves me too, I'm guessing, but there's one thing that's causing a lot of issues for us. I suffer from prosopagnosia/face blindness, which means that it's really hard for me to recognize people's faces. I usually go by other characteristics to put a name to a person, like hairstyle/facial hair, marks, skin colors, accessories, etc., but it's still really tough. It's caused me severe anxiety and other mental health struggles. I'm lucky to have wonderful people around me though, who are aware and try to help. They'll introduce themselves when we start talking, wear something they know that I've linked to them, or whatever. Usually my boyfriend does this too, but sometimes he likes to test me, and it's incredibly stressful. He shaved off his beard once. A few times he wore a completely different style of clothing or changed his hairstyle, all without warning me. In those moments, he won't tell me who he is or say someone else's name, just to see if I'll figure out that it's him. He'll make jokes saying that he'll try to switch with one of his friends and see if I'll stay loyal. I usually do realize that it's him, but it causes me a lot of anxiety. We've had big fights on this. He says he's allowed to change his look. I'm not a cartoon character, he says, and I ask him to warn me. Don't get me wrong, he cares about me, but I don't think he gets how stressful it is. How do I make it clear? We have a lot of great times together. There's just this bump. In the comments, CheapDepth2155 says, he's messing with your safety. Does he not realize that? OP says, I don't think he realizes how confusing it all is. There's been a moment that he did the opposite, acting all weirded out when I thanked him for a nice date, saying that it wasn't him, and though I knew that it was, I still started to doubt myself. He did say that it was a joke soon after, but it caused such a panic. He hasn't done it again, but it took me a long time to feel comfortable again. Making someone feel unsafe is not a joke. Gaslighting someone you care about is not a joke. Holy smikes, that's terrifying. Not to recognize a familiar face with a major change like that is like nightmare fuel. That your boyfriend does it to you multiple times on purpose is scary. I don't know if there is any other way that you can explain to him if he doesn't get it. It seems he enjoys your panic, which is not a good thing in a partner. If this was my partner, I would get a tattoo or something, and I don't have any. OP says, my dad actually got a tattoo on his arm for me, which is a great comfort. I hadn't realized how messed up everything is until reading all of these replies. Your boyfriend is basically abusing you in emotional situations. He thinks it's hilarious that you struggle and get severe anxiety, which isn't normal, nor does it mean that he cares about you. This is a huge red flag. And OP says, abuse is a really big word, but I do agree that it's not okay. I'm seeing him soon. We'll see how it goes. I want to be 100% clear on this. Taking advantage of my disability to trick me is not okay. You know that's what you're doing, and it's insulting when you expect me to believe that you are not doing that. It's extremely upsetting to me, and I don't know why you would want me to feel anxious and terrible. If you care about my feelings, you will stop doing this. If that doesn't make him stop, then you need to stop telling yourself, oh, he just doesn't realize that this bothers me, even though I've told him repeatedly that it bothers me. When you've made your feelings incredibly clear, the answer is not that he doesn't understand, it's that he doesn't care because he'd rather screw with you for his own amusement. OP replies, fair enough. Thank you for replying. I'm not looking forward to having this kind of conversation with him, but it's needed. Not feeling comfortable talking about how his behavior affects you is a red flag in and itself. You might want to think about this. You aren't even saying anything that would be embarrassing for him, just stating your needs to be comfortable and how he can help you with that. Isn't that exactly something you would want to know from him and be thankful for him sharing? Just give it some thought. It sounds like you might be so used to skirting around his sensitivities and ignoring your own that you can't even express your feelings to your significant other in case. OP replies, I spoke to him, tried to stay rational about it all. It was tough. I think my relationship is over. Back up to the post, we have an update. It's hard to imagine that I made this post 19 hours ago and now I'm in the middle of breaking up with him. I'm very tired, so I'm going to keep this short. I went to talk to him, showed him this, and told him that he can't do it anymore. The conversation was a lot. First, he was angry I made this post. Then he was angry I was taking it all so serious, lots of apologies, and so on. He again said that he was just trying to make a tough situation more light, and I said that it's too much. He said I can't take a joke, and I need to let him be him. That he always tells me when he's been joking, and if he was really keen on hurting me, he'd just do things and not tell me. So him telling me proves that he cares. That one got me uncomfortable. At one point, he said he just wanted to test if it was real because I could just be using it as an excuse to do anything. I left after that because we were just going in circles. There was a lot of me making an issue of one small thing. I'm exhausted. He's still blowing up my phone with love and apologies, but you guys made me realize a lot. Thanks. Really. I'm trying to stay rational about it, but it's hard because I do care about him a lot. I'm gonna get a few hours of sleep. Thank you again. I don't know if I have too much productive to add to this situation besides the fact that the ex, now, is a dickhead. A dangerous dickhead at that. Not one that you'd want to be keeping around in your life at all, that's for sure. How insane can you be to say that, oh, if I really wanted to abuse you, here's what I'd do? How can you trust someone after that? How can you trust that they're not going to abuse you when they tell you to your face if they wanted to abuse you, they could, and this is how they would do it? Oh, so like all the other stuff that you've been doing to me, but the fact that you say, aha, I'm just messing with you, it's not abuse then. Right. And now, onto the updates. Hi y'all, hope it's okay that I post a little update. Things went batshit crazy. A lot has happened in the last days. I'm really grateful to you all, honestly. I wasn't aware about the real meanings of his pranks and what it said about him and our relationship. I went to talk to him the same evening that I made that post with the intention of making clear he can't pull all that anymore. The conversation escalated. We talked for hours into the night and every day since. There has been a lot of messages. He got angry about the Reddit post I made. I showed him, angry at you guys, angry that I couldn't take a joke and listened to strangers. Said things like he in the beginning didn't believe that I actually suffered from it and would use it as an excuse to cheat on him. That now he does believe, but due to bad breakups in the past, he has a hard time trusting that I won't use it as an excuse regardless. Said he was joking about it because he wanted to make a tough situation lighter and that's just his sense of humor. That if I loved him, I'd accept that. When I made it clear that I was done, it got even worse. He began apologizing a lot, said he didn't realize that it was such a big thing for me. Again, didn't make any sense with all said before. In the same breath, he said that he at least told me. To the people who thought he actually had planned to trick me by using one of his friends, I think y'all may be very right. To be honest, I was done. I do care about him a lot, can't just shut that off, but it's never going to work. There's been many messages, calls, etc. He dropped some vague hints that sometimes he pulled pranks that I wasn't aware of. I don't know if that's true, or he's just in a bad place right now. He also came to my place to apologize again, but I suspect he didn't expect that I'd immediately recognize him, as he didn't apologize till I said his name. He's not evil, but just very messed up right now. I blocked him everywhere, told him to not show up anymore, and that a friend would give him his stuff. I'm going to delete this account soon, but I wanted to say thank you guys for helping me realize it. I genuinely don't think I would have. I'm heartbroken, but a bit relieved as well. Thanks for all the support and kindness. In the comments, Massive Letterhead 90 says, "It's great that you blocked him. He's still trying to F with your mind, now by implying he's done bad things that you haven't picked up on. The idea is to leave you twisting and turning with worry. He's most likely bluffing to punish you for daring to leave him. At the same time, he's getting his kicks from sadistic jokes, just like when you were dating. You'll feel much better and more confident once he's properly out of your life. Good for you. I missed your original post, so I went back and read that too. I can't understand why some people pull those stupid pranks even after they're told not to do them. He effed around and found out that he is single now due to his stupid pranks. Hope he learns from this. But you be strong and rock the world. OP replies, "Thank you loads." For what it's worth, I had a boyfriend who kept coming around to apologize, make up, argue, etc. I literally got to the point where I'd respond by quoting the last horrid thing that he'd said to me. He'd call me or come to my place, and I'd say the horrible thing he said last argument, and then hang up or shut the door. He's told you who he is. Believe him. OP replies, "Yeah, very true. I hope you're rid of the boyfriend." For decades, but I do remember using his own words against him. Just living life, I guess, says, "I find it baffling that he acted like you were the one escalating something small when it could have stayed something small had he just acknowledged your feelings and apologized and agreed to stop with the prank. He was the one escalating the situation by defending himself and getting angry. Good on you for standing your ground." OP replies, "Thank you loads. My partner has face blindness, and it badly unsettles him whenever I'm sick and my voice is deep and different, even though he completely knows that it's me. I can't imagine pranking him like that. It's so cruel." Edit, the way that he's described face blindness to me is if I had to recognize people from their hands alone. I could probably do it with very different hands, and in very specific contexts, but if there aren't any rings or tattoos or fingernail polish, or distinct grooming or scars, etc., then at a certain point it goes from difficult to impossible. I'm face blind, and I totally know that feeling. My mum once surprised me by wearing contacts. Her car, her hair, obviously, who else is picking me up from school? And I think I spoiled the surprise by going like, "Wah!" For what it's worth, I think it's funny when people moderately mess with their appearance as a joke, but I'm totally in on it, so the key is consent. But also the loyalty test is messed up, to an incredible level. This should have stopped the first time OP expressed discomfort. I wouldn't be able to enjoy a prank if I knew the recipient hated it. Unrelated note, but I think being face blind has made me pretty consistent in secondary features like hair. Don't want to unsettle myself, you know? I have it, mildly. Thankfully, my girlfriend is very noticeable with her clothing style, switches between a few hairstyles regularly, only 3, and on top of that has very distinctive piercings. She's the easiest person to recognize. I guess being goth is a good thing after all. So many people love testing people's disabilities, even when it makes no effing sense to be faking it. She's just really committed to being able to use face blindness as an excuse when she cheats. Sarcasm. I worked with someone who was face blind, and a lot of my colleagues had similar hair, so had difficulty telling us apart. I made sure that I always started a conversation with something specific to us/me, so he would know who it was straight away. Wasn't a big deal. Right? It's so easy to help someone. It doesn't impact me to be a little more obvious. I've worked with 2 deaf people, never bothered me to keep it in mind and make sure to be right in front of their face when talking to them. I can't imagine hurting people on purpose like that. Our next post is by user ThrowRA Basic Donut 87, titled, "My 32 male, ex-wife 33 female, divorced me after a personality change. I found out I have a brain tumor. How do I move forward?" So my ex-wife divorced me in 2022. I was devastated, but I couldn't blame her. We had been together for about 6 years, and for a while, we had an incredible relationship. We had a memorable engagement in Belize. A long story involving bats, getting stranded at the Mayan ruins where I proposed to her, and being rescued by a passing British military exercise. But that's a whole other story. I won't wax poetic about it, but suffice to say it's the happiest I've ever been, and I think I made her very happy too. She was my best friend, and we were ready to spend the rest of our lives together. I was extremely close to her whole family as well. I was her brother's best man at his wedding. But then the troubles started. My mental health took a steep decline. My behavior was extremely erratic and bizarre. When we were in public, I often thought that I was being followed. One time I became convinced that listening devices had been implanted in our home. I thought the police or government agencies were after me and monitoring my devices. My wife finally dragged me to the emergency room after one of these incidents, and I ended up getting diagnosed as having a psychotic break with bipolar and schizoaffective disorder. My wife stood by me through it all, but even on treatment, I continued my strange behavior and thought patterns. There was lying and substance abuse. Previously, I'd only ever drank socially and occasionally smoked weed. It was all very out of character for me. I'd always been a very stable person, but I seemed to be spiraling. One day my wife had enough and told me she wanted a divorce. She'd caught me lying about drug use. For a while, I maintained contact with her brother, who tried to support us both through it, but eventually he cut me off too. In the year following the divorce, I tried emailing and texting my wife and her brother, but eventually I got the hint. Mutual friends dropped me too. I couldn't blame anybody. I think additional lies and misbehaviors had come to light, so I was a pariah. I sank pretty low, lost multiple jobs, and barely scraped by. Fast forward to now. I'm still struggling, but I've managed to hold a good, well-paying job and even bought a few properties. I got a new little pup named Archie who keeps me going when times get tough. I've kept at therapy, and it's definitely helped. But recently while traveling, I suddenly collapsed. I went to the hospital, and when the doctor heard my history, he immediately ordered an MRI. The look on his face and his whole demeanor spooked me, like he suspected something that he didn't want to tell me, but he insisted on just waiting to see and not speculating. Lo and behold, I have a brain tumor. The funny thing is, when I found out, I was relieved? Finally, it all made sense. Apparently it's not unheard of for such a thing to be misdiagnosed as bipolar. The doctor says it's probably been growing slowly for a long time and explains my strange and out-of-character behavior. Thankfully, they think it's treatable, and with surgery, I stand to make a good recovery. So how do I move forward with this? I want to try to reach out to my ex-wife and her brother, but maybe they've moved on with their lives, and I shouldn't try to reinsert myself. I've done enough damage as it is. They don't seem to want to have any contact with me, but I also feel like they should know. They may have blocked my number and email, but I do still have some mutual friends that I could reach out through. For all I know, my wife is in another relationship and I shouldn't reopen those wounds, but if the roles were reversed, I'd want her to let me know. So how should I move forward here? What, if anything, should I say? In the comments, if I were your ex, I would want to know. It doesn't mean that she'll want to have any kind of relationship with you, but on the off chance she still has feelings, that information would allow me to make some important decisions moving forward. And OP says, I admit, I do fantasize about us getting back together, but I guess I should go into this with zero expectations. I just miss her a lot. Tell her. My friend's mum had her, and then had two brothers like 10 years later. My friend used to talk about how different her mum was when she was growing up, and how sad she was her brothers never got the mum that she got. Well, it got bad when something happened at school one day. She was a teacher, and basically retired for medical reasons. After they found a tumor like yours, she had surgery to remove it, and after she recovered, she was her old self. Her personality had completely changed because of the brain tumor. I wish you well. As someone that blew up her life for no goddamn reason, I can relate to you. You have a chance to at least explain why you were like that. I have no excuse. Good luck. Another Russian spy replies, for my wife, it was her father who had a drastic personality change, but his was due to a stroke. He was one of the meanest assholes you could ever meet. This is until his stroke. Then he turned into the nicest, happiest, funniest guy ever. The grandkids loved Grandpa because he was always happy and laughing. One day my wife said to me, I know this is bad, but I wish he would have had a stroke a long time ago. I really needed a dad back then. Oof, that's a rough one. That is so rough, but that's reality, isn't it? Catalina Bailifan says, I think they should know, but you should not have any expectations. A lot of water under the bridge. All of you were victimized by that tumor. OP replies, they might have blocked my number and email, but I do have some mutual friends who I could ask to deliver a message, maybe. I don't want to cross any boundaries though. I guess I could try to relay a message, and if they don't respond, it's just time to move on. I would let them know through mutual friends. Write a short email, label it, finally got the right diagnosis, express your gratitude for their support, and then explain why nothing worked. Let them know the next steps for your recovery, and then let it go. They supported you for a long time and will likely be surprised and relieved and host a whole spectrum of feelings. I would want to know if I was them. No idea if they'll want to touch base with you, but opening the door can't hurt. This right here is perfect. This leaves the ball in their courts on whether and how they'd want to respond to you, with no expectations on your end. To be honest, if I were you, I would first go to your doctor who's been treating you and ask why they haven't done an MRI or scan of any sort like that. That's one of the first things neurologists ask for when someone shows sudden and extreme changes in their behavior. You always have to assume that a brain injury or defect could play into it. It's important that your doc knows they made a mistake and should handle stuff like this differently. OP replies, to be fair, my first doctor, they did order a scan at the time, just not an MRI. I'm not sure what kind of scan it was. That period of my life is quite a blur, and I have some memory issues and huge gaps in my recollections. But apparently for slow-growing tumors in the frontal lobe, it's not uncommon to go undetected by other types of scans, so maybe they should have ordered an MRI, but I can understand where the misdiagnosis came from. And now, onto the update. So first off, thanks everybody for the comments and advice. I didn't expect my post to get as much attention as it did, but it was really helpful to get some perspective. Not to mention lots of support, including some very thoughtful messages. It got reposted on other places, including some news sites, and a few journalists and podcasters reached out to me. I'm touched that my story seemed to resonate with some people, but I'm a very private person, and I'm working through a lot right now, so apologies if I haven't responded to your message. Long story short, I've decided not to contact my ex or her brother for the time being. I know some people were probably rooting for a happier, or at least more interesting ending, but this is how I'm handling things for now. I think the majority of the comments on my last post encouraged me to reach out just to inform my ex of the situation and maybe give her some closure. Some suggested making a post on social media so it would get back to her, or delivering a message through a mutual friend. For a while, something along these lines is what I wanted to do. Now for the social media thing, I don't actually have any social media other than an Instagram account for my pup Archie with like 10 followers, and a Facebook account using a fake name with 0 friends. I use it for Marketplace. But that's kinda besides the point. I think more importantly, not reaching out right now just feels like the right move. I guess the true question is, what would be the best way to handle this for my ex? How does this affect her? And honestly, the more I think about it, the more it seems like reaching out is the selfish move. She's always been a strong, resilient person, so I have no doubt that she's managed to build a good life and move on, and I'd just be potentially interfering with that, stirring up old hurts and wounds, and maybe adding a lot of confusion and other complicated emotions. And then, for the selfish perspective, I don't think it would be good for me either. I admit a part of me fantasized about a situation where we got back together, all was forgiven, and we lived happily ever after, but I think that's exactly the problem. I realized there was no way that I was going to be able to temper my expectations. So right now, with everything going on, it probably would be a bad thing to add into the mix. I will always love my ex-wife. We grew up together. I loved all her quirks and her silliness and her strength, the way that she always stood up for what she believed in, the fact that we always had so much fun together. Whether we were playing a board game, she'd learn quick and kick my ass, except for Race for the Galaxy, or buying a house, or going on a bike ride somewhere, or overanalyzing a movie or TV show that we'd watch together. She's brilliant and hilarious and gorgeous and a total weirdo. Very early in our relationship, she asked me whether I was a barfer or a shitter when I got sick. I was also the DM for a D&D campaign that she played in, and her Goblin Rogue will always be peak tabletop gaming to me. I loved hearing her thoughts about everything. I miss her every day. And who knows, maybe we'll reconnect at some point in the future. I'm not ruling out ever contacting her, and in case it wasn't clear in my last post, I never thought that my tumor exonerated me of responsibility for everything I've done. I know that I still need to take ownership of my actions and learn and grow from this. So that's what I'm going to focus on, getting better. My surgery is getting scheduled, and then I'll just have to take it one step at a time. There is a lot of other stuff going on too. I was applying and interviewing for jobs before all this, and actually got 2 offers recently, so I'll be communicating with them about whether we could delay the start date, and worst case, if not, my current job is secure and medical leave won't be a problem. I also bought another property, although the sale is still conditional, so I could walk away if I have to. We'll see how it goes. All this to say, life is pretty hectic right now, but I honestly feel good. And for the first time in several years, I'm looking forward to what comes next, whatever that may be. Anyways, thanks again everybody for reading and commenting, sharing your advice and stories, well wishes, and love. I might post another update down the line, but fair warning, I'm hoping it's just as boring as this one. TLDR, I'm just gonna leave my ex and her family alone for now and focus on getting better. In the comments, Independent Size 7972 says, focus on yourself for sure, but do make sure to let your friends and family know what's going on. You're going to need support network for your recovery. You may also want to see if there is a support group that would apply. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I do have to say, I still think that in your ex's shoes, I would want to know, but I also get how you'd want to not potentially turn her world upside down again. Maybe talking to her brother only and getting his opinion could be a good compromise, but I'm sure you've thought of pretty much all these scenarios already. At the end of the day, I'm glad you made a decision that you're at peace with, and that you're putting your healing and happiness first. Quotes, and I'd just be potentially interfering with that, stirring up old hurt and wounds, and maybe adding a lot of confusion. I want to address this. I'm not sure if it was said in the other post, but it'd be good to hear it again anyways. Sometimes the person going through this shit isn't aware and can't really understand what their loved ones are experiencing. They really are suffering alongside of you, albeit in a different manner, and it's so rarely acknowledged by anyone, least of all the sick person. Yes, it would hurt. However, this woman went through this with you. She saw the man that she loved slowly disappear and be unable to change for her. Let me tell you, that is a special kind of hell to heal from, and you never really do. You move on, you learn not to beat yourself up sometimes, you even learn not to feel guilty. But before that, boy, before acceptance, you spend hours and days and years wondering if you could have done something different, if you made the wrong choice, if you were the reason why they were like this, if you hurt them in some way, and wondering what you can do to fix them. Might I suggest that you take the time to write a letter? Explain that you have a tumor, but also that you don't want to hurt her, you don't want her back, literally don't want anything from her, not even a platonic relationship or support, just that you wanted her to know that she could have done nothing else, and that it's not and never has been her fault. This was a 1 in a million fluke event that would never have been on anyone's mind, and nobody, especially not her, is wrong for not thinking of it, and thank her for everything that she did do. She stuck by for a long-ass time, and there's a damn good chance that you never would have found out if she didn't spend so many years saving you from yourself. You could even take that a step further and send the letter to her brother first, so he can decide. He will know for certain if she beat herself up for what happened and felt guilt for leaving or blamed herself, and he will know if this will do more harm than good, or if it would bring her closure and peace. He can send the letter on to her. Always take care of yourself first and foremost, and I wish you well in your journey back to yourself. But do tell her, she deserves to know from you, and you owe her thanks. Rarely have I felt so bad for 2 people. One of the reasons why I tell anyone whose partner suddenly shifts personality to drag them to a doctor rather than dump them. It's not just for their sake. Well, she did though. The misdiagnosis was the problem, not the relationship. And the initial misdiagnosis is totally understandable, especially with his age. Mid-20s to early 30s is often when people experience their first psychosis episode. But when the meds made no noticeable difference, that's when they should have ordered some serious workup. They failed this couple. This makes me think of the Star Trek TNG quotes. It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life. Can't blame the ex-wife or OP here. Both are victims of circumstance. And while whatever happened in the marriage may not be the OP's fault, it could have been major enough for his ex-wife to find it difficult to move past, even if she knows that OP is not to blame. I hate that quote for how incredibly and unfortunately true it is far too often. It really sucks that karma doesn't exist, and that life, sometimes, will just suck, even if you do everything right. The universe being unfair just doesn't seem fair. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!